So to begin out the creation of the monster and its environment, I started out by thinking of a sea monster, maybe a kraken, that just appears in a flat open area where it can see you, you can see it, there's not much escape, but quickly realised that wouldn't lend so much to the idea of having a juxtaposed kind of life area right next to death of a desert. So quickly switched up to more of a forest mixed with desert where we see like scorpions and other arachnid style creatures like spiders, which is what the end monster was designed to be like, as a kind of giant peering monster coming out of the fog, where the fog is used both to create these beautiful scenes in the forest, but also to hide the true monster itself, as you'll see later on in the rendered images. And I think the juxtaposition with the harsh border just really follows this theme quite well. So to begin out for the spider, we have two parameterized spheres that are connected together. We then take two other curves that are then kind of placed on the side of this body, where we then copy some polywired curves, give us this basic spider shape. We then also copy a large number of spheres across onto the body of the spider, which you can see are changed by procedural methods. These are all then merged together and all converted with a bit of attribute noise added on to a nice just mesh for the spider itself. The skeleton is done in a very similar way, where we create one leg, copy it to those points, merge it all, rig doctor it, and then finally orient all the joints and parent them, so it's all working with Unreal. And then finally we can capture the entire skeleton and bone deform it however we want in Unreal. So from the Houdini engine, we then export each of these spiders as their own separate FBX skeletal mesh, as Unreal calls them, where you can see each spider here, all five of them have a different number of legs. We have the 4-legged up to 12-legged spider on the far right in the test scene here. Each of them can have a procedurally generated set of bumps as well that are all seeded within Houdini, but at least in this case here, we can see as we go into Spider 5 skeleton, the spiders, they're all completely rigged up, meaning you can move each individual section of the spider, be it the leg, the back, the head, every part of this spider can be completely controlled using the skeleton system within Unreal because of how it was made in Houdini. Moving across to the control rig for the spider with the skeletal mesh that we have just seen, all of the nodes in here, as they slowly go across the screen, work together using a basic inverse kinematic node from Unreal to get the legs to basically go to where we want them to whenever the spider's walking. You can see in the preview window we only have the 4-legged spider, but as we see on here on the screen, there is working out where the calf, the thigh, there's a bit of funky maths to work out where the foot is due to it being exported from Houdini with bone names of 0.1 through basically about 40, depending on the size of the spider. So we have to work out where the foot is. But once we've worked out all of that, and we also work out where the foot goes, that happens in a different function that will appear in a minute. We can just put all of those numbers into the basic IK, and it does all the magic for us, which is very nice. But you can see here that a lot of the calculation for where the foot goes appears just in these functions here, with a bit of smoothing and maths to make it only take steps when it has to. And overall, it creates what I consider a pretty authentic spider walk. So inside the setup spider function within this control rig blueprint, this is where a lot of the base information is stored. So you can see stuff like setting the position of the feet, and I believe the pelvis also happens in here. And it just basically takes all the information about the spider, puts it all in the lists where we want it to in the variables, and then once it's done, the spider is ready to be manipulated by the other functions. And I mean, on the left-hand side, you can see a lot of those other functions. I'm only going to go over the major one, like the calculating the new foot targets, because a lot of the other ones are just a couple of nodes that do like a timer and stuff, but that is all for the setting up. So across now to calculate new foot targets, which is the main function that calculates where we want the feet to actually go within the world. So at the top, we can see something that stops the feet from getting too far away from their target location. So it checks if their current location, where it is locked in the world, is too far away from where it's aiming to be. I think in this case 450 units is the value we use, and if it is, it forces it to then push the foot forward on a rare chance, but given the rare chance is pretty high, it's not hard for it to happen. And you can see here, this is all working out on a time-based system when to move the foot. So every 0.6 seconds, each foot has an independent timer that will then trigger that, once again off that random chance to add a bit more randomness into it. But the main overall use of this function is to continually update and set this target location for the feet, where the feet then track to using that basic IK function we've just seen. And all of these variables are being saved and set, and you can see the sphere trace there that basically just keeps the feet on the ground. So if the terrain is kind of tilted in any direction, the sphere trace will be able to detect that with how high it goes and make a realistic looking walk that can work on basically any kind of terrain design, and it just looks very, very authentic for a simple walking animation. And so here we can see the walk animation in real time with the game being simulated. Don't have a playable character or anything, it's just a camera watching it move, but you can see how up until the terrain maybe gets slightly too high, which is fixed in a slightly later version of this, the feet are very good at traversing this terrain. It can get a bit funky, and it's definitely not a perfect IK controller for the spider. As you'll see in a second, the legs get very stretched out when it goes downhill, but it does match its feet to the terrain a majority of the time. Like I said, it's a bit better in later versions, but my computer can't. So within the terrain, we can see there is a height map. It is a realistic scan height map that I have taken off the internet, slightly shrunk it down so that my PC doesn't hate me. But we use that height map as the basis and the material paint tool to paint on these textures, which then allows us to procedurally place down trees in the grass area, rocks or the spiky rocks in the border, and then some rocks and some desert plants from another set of asset bundles in the actual sand area. So it starts with a spline that we then spline sample based on the terrain. That gives us our points that we work off to begin with. Then following on to that, we project those points onto said plane, and using a attribute noise, convert it from a spline sampler to a noise sampler, and then using the point filters, we sample the material at each spot. So in that case, we check if it's over half sandstone, over half grass, and if it is, we put those really sharp spiky rocks in. If it's over half sandstone but not over half grass, we instead put those desert plants that you see and a few rocks around the place. It just allows a lot more choice in options. In the not desert area, so the sandy area, you see trees, and then along the pathway we have those smaller trees and also some bushes. We also have some grass that appears. In this version, it's not very much grass, and it is disabled due to my PC not enjoying it, but it is there. And so here we can see the procedural terrain object placing in effect. Sorry about the lack of frames. I'm running this off my computer at home and it does not like Unreal. So hopefully it's not too bad. But if we go and let's say paint some grass on there, when everything catches up, you will see that the spikes follow the grass, so we can change it and it will accurately reflect what has been done. So if I place down some gravel, this all gets trees around the edges and we get a nice circle of trees and just stuff like that. It's procedurally done. It's not a hard tool to use whatsoever. You just change using Unreal's landscape tools himself.